One of the things that Zig Ziglar said is he said, you'd be surprised once you get the hang of this wall of gratitude is the names that end up on it. And he was right. One of the hardest men that I've ever worked for in my life ended up on my wall of gratitude. Not because of the warm and fuzzies, but because of something, in some cases, much greater. Every fork in the road in a relationship is not necessarily something that's broken. But one thing I've learned about emotional tanks is if it's empty, it's not like going to the gas station and filling it up. When it's empty, and it's going to take you a while to refill it. When I say a while, I'm not talking about a week. I'm not even talking about a month. I'm not even talking about a quarter.
Hey, before we jump into the podcast, we want to thank all our donors and supporters who make the Today Count Show possible. It's through your generosity that we're able to shape leaders through this content in this podcast. And be sure to like, subscribe, and follow wherever you find yourself coming across this content. All right, let's get to the podcast. The health of your relationships is the truest measure of your leadership. My name is Winston. I'm your co-host today alongside Jim Piper here on the Today Count Show. Jim, how we doing?
We're doing pretty well.
We're doing good?
Yes.
Doing good. Before we got rolling, we were talking some NBA basketball, and I want to pick your brain real quick. LeBron to the Sixers.
LeBron to the Sixers.
Initial take.
Well, I didn't see that coming. Not at all. I didn't know whether he was going to square up with his current team, the Lakers, whether he was going to try to do that last lap with Cleveland. I just didn't expect the 76ers. I don't know why.
I thought he was going to Miami, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I thought Miami or Cleveland, obviously both.
Right.
History there. Sixers, yeah, that was out of left field. I do think personally they have a pretty strong chance to go to the Eastern Conference Finals, barring injury. I just think they're really good, and you have that amount of firepower. Like you should
have that anchor.
Yeah, and
yeah.
LeBron seems to be willing to.
You think he plays a different role than he did, say, 7-8 years ago?
I think we saw that with the Lakers last year. Like he was willing to kind of take a backseat to Luka and even Austin Reeves. Yeah. And so I think he'll play that veteran role. He knows how to kind of turn it on. He definitely doesn't need to expend all the energy being the superstar and trying to score 30.
He doesn't need to set scoring records.
Nope.
But, okay, we need 6 buckets. I'm going to get them.
Yep.
Then I'm going to go take a rest.
Yep. I mean, you got Embiid, he's a veteran. You got Jaylen Brown, who I would think you would consider a veteran. He's won a championship. And then you got some young guys. So I think he's an interesting piece to kind of bridge the gap. Yeah. And the interesting thing will be the superstardom, the gravity of LeBron James, everything that comes with him. Right. How does that interrupt the culture of the Sixers?
Yeah, you're introducing the concept of people in the inside-out leadership paradigm framework. And I think you just landed on the big piece is that how many times have I coached a team that should have won that didn't win? And how many times have I coached teams that they said wouldn't win who did win? And it often came to the culture, the teamwork. That's a real thing. It's a real thing. How well someone's accepted, how well someone wants to be there to serve, to make a difference,
How they're received.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, I opened this, podcast that the health of your relationships is the truest measure of your leadership. This concept is coming out of potentially, by the time this is seen or heard, your brand new book,
yes.
Reimagining Leadership.
From the inside out.
Where you start drilling down into this concept of your people. And there's a story you share from Zig Ziglar that sets up this idea of getting into gratitude. Can you talk us through?
All right, I'm going to try to bring the color to it. Now, I realize that many people listening to this podcast today, this episode today, maybe have never, heard of Zig Ziglar, or if they have, they would not recognize him if he were to walk by. Now, he's deceased, so that would be interesting in itself. But Zig Ziglar was a beloved, I guess today they'd call him a motivational speaker. But to me, what he did is he did sales training. He taught salespeople how to be more effective. He was a believer, Christian man, and he called this book that I have in front of me, he called it The Good Book. That's what he always referred to in his speech. So I'm going to try to bring color to this. See if you guys, because it was a very shaping moment for me. So let me work at it just for a second. So I go to this leadership conference at the Pepsi Center. It's not called that anymore. I forget what it's called now, but the Pepsi Center was and is the arena in downtown Denver, Colorado, where the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche played. So I didn't go there for the game. I went there for this conference, and I went there to listen to one specific person, and that was Zig Ziglar.
It's the ball arena now.
It's the ball arena. Okay, good. It's the ball arena. And yeah, we don't want to give false advertising to the wrong people. So anyway, especially since I'm a Coca-Cola fan. So yeah, but I went there. I went there to listen to Zig, and I was up in the nosebleed area. About half the auditorium was filled, with people, and then they had the other half blocked off with the background and whatnot. And Zig Ziglar has a Southern accent, but he's got the Southern charm, very diplomatic, yet his principles were strong. And somewhere in his place, he basically was teaching us that if you don't like people, if you need to change about that, you need to change about how you view people. And he said that, the best salespeople people aren't the ones that simply learn about the personalities of the one in front of them, but they actually find themselves endearing towards others. And he said, I'm gonna introduce to you something that I created for myself, and I think it'll be a blessing to you. Something like that is what he said. He said, I have what's called a wall of gratitude. And he said that what I did is I sat down and I began to think about all the people in my life from the time, whether it was a Sunday school teacher, a kindergarten teacher, whether it was a coach, whether it was a neighbor, whether it was an uncle, whether it was somebody that I never met, but I read all his books, whoever it was, I wanted to write their name down. And I put it on my wall of gratitude. And he literally created a physical wall. I don't remember if it was his office or where it was, but he created a physical wall where he put the names of all the people that had that kind of quality, added that kind of value to his life to where it would be recognized. Kind of like a hall of fame, but a wall of gratitude. So without warning, he says, we're going to do that right now. And he said, you were handed this when you came in, grab your pen. And for the next few minutes, this place is going to go silent. And you just need to start jotting down every name that you can think of that added value in their life. And that was an amazing moment for me. And I'll close it with just this, because there's a lot more to talk about that we don't have time for. But what I remember most, even more than the names I began to scribble down, is I'd never been in an arena that had that many people that was that quiet, that either had their heads down writing or they had their heads up as if they were looking out into space, thinking about their lives. And you could just see it. You can just see it. I'll say one more thing and close this out. After he walked us through things, which I wish we had time to go over, my book does, though, goes over some of this. One thing he did say at the end of it, he says, oh, and by the way, I wonder if your name will be written on somebody else's wall of gratitude.
Wow. Man, that's a powerful. I'm imagining myself in the arena, hearing a pin drop, and in where my mind goes is, this kind of idea that gratitude is, forcing us to look back, right? To consider, those, as you said, who have blessed us, who have encouraged us, who have, as you said, added some kind of value to us, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And maybe in those spaces, we were, a bystander, we were a reciprocator. We didn't necessarily intentionally choose that person to help us, but somehow they helped us. But where we're going here is that we do at some point get to look forward and choose the people that we want in our circle. We do get to look ahead and consider, just in the same vein, same energy, different focus, but that internal reconciling. Okay, like, who are the people that have got me to where I am, who have affected my, my life. And then I do have agency. I do have the ability to be in proximity and relationship and intentional reciprocation of serving, others. And so this framework is coming out of the person, people, place framework that you go over in the book. Maybe just a quick snapshot for us, those who are listening who are unfamiliar or maybe need a refresher on the person, people, place idea.
Yeah, real simple. In in all the years of slugging it out alongside all of everyone else, I've come to be convicted and convinced that the best framework to think about life and leadership is an inside-out proposition. And inside meaning, first, I really need to work on building a healthy me. And it's not a selfish thing. It's not a psychological thing. It's written in the universe. It's God's laws. And then the overflow of working on, and it's not sequential necessarily, but it's priority, it's understanding, it's thoughtfulness. That the overflow of the intentionality I have in my life then spills out into the lives of others, thus the people. And what kind of impact do I want to have in the lives of others? It's intentional, and it's sometimes unintentional because of the overflow of my inner life. And then the overflow of those two places, person, people, then goes into whatever context I'm in, which we call a place. Could be a workplace, could be a season. So that's the short capsule.
Yeah, and once again, coming out of reimagining leadership, excited for all those who are going to be able to take this concept and apply it practically. But one of the ideas inside of this your people, being able to choose your people, is connecting.
Yes.
And being able to, figure out, okay, what does it look like to actually work with people? What does it look like to actually, have healthy relationships? And can you tell me of a time where maybe you became aware that I don't connect with people as good as I could or should in a leadership context?
Well, if you want something raw, ruthless, and totally honest, when I was younger, I really don't think I do this today. I don't. Now, maybe I do, but I don't think I do. But when I was younger, no doubt about it, I was a user of people. It doesn't mean that I consciously say, how can I use these guys to get myself ahead? No, that's not usually how it works. When you're young, ignorant, arrogant, all the other words, narcissistic, whatever words
Insecure.
you want to, insecure, all those kinds of things. And so I think most of the time I was unconscious that was doing, but I was seeing people to fill holes to help me accomplish something. And my rationale was that something was a good thing. And so that's good enough. But through life, through the bumps and bruises in life, a walk with God, those kinds of things, I began to realize, wait a second, this whole thing, if you look at things theologically, God's highest creation that we're aware of, that have been communicated to us, is human people. It's people. So now when we work together, we usually call that collaborating. But here's my point. You can't really collaborate with somebody until you have first connected with them, where you have interest in them, where you invest in them, and you wait for the response to see if they want to play, and not everybody wants to play. That's fine. But you connect with people, you take interest in others before you even begin to collaborate.
Is there an approach? Is there a framework that we should, see this idea in?
This is just how Jim thinks, right? And so I just offer this. Consider it. Just consider. I'm not shoving this down anyone's throat. When you look at the creation of a human being, so you're obviously trying to sit in a chair of understanding. You're trying to figure things out, and some of the things that we've been given, is that every human being has a temperament, and we kind of need to know what makes up a human. Yeah, like all humans in general. And so that's like the wide angle. And then the zoom is, what kind of human are you among this makeup, this framework of humanity. So it kind of goes temperament, their story, and how they're developing as a person and their character. Those three things, I kind of see them layered. Temperament to me is like the foundation. It's the starting place. It never changes. But as important and maybe more important as time goes on is their story, and to become very interested in their story. Because as you get interested in your story, you find yourself leaning into that person. I don't know how you can help but not do that. And then as you engage in that kind of a relationship, you get to kind of participate, watching how the temperament dances with their story. And then there's intentional and spiritual and practical decisions that are now being made that form who that person really is. At the end of the day, it's their character.
That's great. That I believe is empowering for anybody who's interested in serving people and using their influence for the benefit of others, and to be able to operate in that kind of dynamic and to do that energetically and passionately. There is a potential obstacle that we have to become aware of that you touch on, which is the emotional tank.
Yeah, the emotional tank. I mean, when your emotional tank's empty, you ain't got much, left there to do. The emotional tank. Okay, so I went to another leadership conference. It was probably in the 1993-ish. And this one leader got up and drew 3 circles from left to right, 3 individual circles. And I don't remember exactly how he labeled them, but on the left, let's say that he called that the emotional tank. It was like a gauge. It was like empty, full. It's like a racing car
dashboard.
Gauge. Dashboard, thank you. So one said emotional, one said physical, one said spiritual. Then he went over to the spiritual. He said, most of us, if we're spiritually dry, we kind of know the things that we need to keep doing, to grow spiritually. Physically, we all know what the answers are here if we're neglecting ourselves. He says, but there's this tricky emotional thing. We don't even know what it is and how it works and what have you. And then he kind of went into a talk about how to be aware of our emotional tank. And that's simply to oversimplify it. It's to understand what drains us. The goal isn't to stay away from the things that drain us as much as be aware of what drains us, so that we are conscious and intentional about knowing what fills us, so that we don't find ourselves empty. Because when we're empty is when we find that we're most susceptible to just about every possible bad decision we could ever make.
Do you think the downfall of many leaders and the headlines where you see unimaginable failures are linked directly to the emotional tank?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes you hear somebody say, I would have never thought that person would have done that because their character said this, their character said that. But underneath all of this character, this story, conditioning, this temperament is an undertow. And the human being is amazingly complex. In some ways simple, but in other ways complex. You could have what you seem to have your act together, serving the world, but slowly but surely beginning to have this undertow that is taken away from those little things that God also wants in your life. Joy, laughter, rest, learning new things, color, whatever those things are that I know for me, I could be totally exhausted, and there's not very, very many good movies anymore, but when I go see a well-written movie that's inspirational, it's like somehow that emotional tank. Now, okay, let me say this, gets a lift. But one thing I've learned about emotional tanks is if it's empty, it's not like going to the gas station and filling it up. When it's empty, and it's going to take you a while to refill it. When I say a while, I'm not talking about a week. I'm not even talking about a month. I'm not even talking about a quarter. It takes time. It's like the analogy that this speaker used was brilliant. He said, maybe you know this, maybe you didn't, and I didn't know this, but he said, at the bottom of the batteries in our car, there's a plate. When your battery is dead, now I don't mean dead like throw it in the dumpster dead, but dead, you can jump it and get the car going. But if you stop that car and try to start it again, it's still dead. Most of the time, you have to take it out of its case and you have to put it in what's called a slow charge. And then over time, you can bring that battery to life, so to speak, through the slow charge. So the moral of the story is don't let your emotional tank get down, because most of us don't have 90 days or 120 days that we can just take off. And taking off isn't actually how it's slow charge, because part of slow charge is doing the mundane little things every day. But it's knowing what does drain you and what does fill you. I don't think it's unusual. I don't think it's strange when we read about Jesus. He's hardcore in the ministry. He's healing people. He's teaching. We can't see him. I never see Jesus as an extrovert for some reason. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but he does extroverted ministry. And then what does he do? It says he just disappears. They can't find him. Not just once a quarter. It's like it happens to him all the time. Right when the ministry's going up, right now he needs to bring his big, grand finale, and they can't find him.
They're like, hey, you need to go to this conference. You need to go to this festival. This is a prime marketing opportunity.
Right.
And Jesus is like, yeah, no, I'm good. He's disappeared. He's asleep on a boat. He's gone. He withdrew, the scripture says.
That's right.
He constantly withdrew. That's great. In this vein of being drained potentially, there are 3 types of relationships you mentioned that every leader has to be aware of. Talk us through those 3 relationships, because I want to know. I want to make sure.
Okay. Well, besides volume, right? Some of us were not made for a large volume of relationships. I'm not sure really anybody is, to be frank. So the 3, and this goes back to the talk that I learned in 1993. A lot of things that happen to us in life, Winston, sometimes it can be a 2-hour thing that you're at that for whatever reason hits you at the right time in the right place and stays with you for the rest of your life. This was one of those for me. So he described what he called a filling relationship. A filling relationship in simple terms is it almost doesn't matter what happens when you're around that person. Somehow you always walk away better. And you go, man, I just love being around. But you can't stay there, because that's not right. You need to move on and spill that out somewhere, right? And we do need people in our lives that are filling. Now, a lot of my filling relationships haven't been physical. They've been mental. They've been the people that I have read.
Wow.
And I have absorbed, right? That's what technology does, right? Because when we learned how to read and write as a human race, that technology, that's how the Bible spread through 2 things. One, the roads during the time and translation, and the press, the printing press, the Gutenberg printing press. But anyway.
Great leaders don't ignore their past. They learn from it. Every decision you've made, every mistake, every win, every failure. It's all shaping the leader you're becoming. In Story, the art of learning from your past, you'll discover how to turn experience into wisdom, setbacks into strategy, and pain into purpose. This isn't just a book about reflection, it's a playbook for growth. If you want to lead with clarity, humility, and confidence, your story matters. Learn from it. Grab your copy of Story, the art of learning from your past, where books are sold.
So filling relationships. Then you have what is called neutral relationships, what he called neutral relationships. Neutral relationships are a lot like friendships. If you think about friendships, over time, they have the ability to become something much greater than a friendship. Kind of like a David and Jonathan kind of a thing for those, a brotherhood that just can't be broken. But most friendships, if you think about it, they're a little bit transactional. There's a season in life. There's an affinity that brought us together. Could be racquetball, could be kids, could be, basketball, working together, right? It's an affinity. And so sometimes you give more than you take, and you take more than you give, but everybody's okay with it. Oh, you're moving, so now I'm going to come help you move. I really don't want to, but I'm your friend, and I guess that's what friends do. It's just back and forth. You buy the pizza, I help you move the sofa. That kind of thing. Now, again, some grow into something more, but most friendships have seasons and time. So we call that neutral. And then you have the infamous draining relationship.
I'm tired just thinking about it.
And you have a hard time explaining it, but every time you're around that person, they suck the living life out of you. And I thought for sure Bill, the speaker, was going to say, stay away from those. That's not what he said. He said, it might be good to learn why that person is draining to you, but that may not be the point. The point is that you certainly can't have very many of them. And some of them, sometimes you draw them to yourself and you don't realize it. Sometimes you don't have boundaries. Sometimes you're supposed to have that person in your life because you're supposed to help them during this season. But whatever the reason might be, make sure that you are taking accounting of the drain so that you're also working on the fill at the same time.
Great. I think, as you're talking, I can think about moments. I think the phrase is a savior complex.
Yeah.
But there are seasons, moments, for whatever reason, where you said unknowingly, there's been times where unknowingly, oh, this draining relationship is in my life because even selfishly, it makes me feel good to try to help this person. I think I can save them.
That's exactly right. And how a lot of them happen, Winston, and here's where they T-bone us. If you're a leader, you're attractive to somebody. And if someone comes up to you hot, fast, and heavy, beware. That's the one. And then they lay out their wounds. And to your point, the Messiah complex or the Savior complex, you want to help out of the goodness of your heart, or maybe, as you said, maybe there's a different motive that makes you feel good. And they could both be the same.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's complex. You might not start with that, but as you seemingly are making traction with this person, you're like, oh, this feels good to help them. But what happens is sometimes, it feels better to help them than to actually focus on what is helpful to them. And what ends up happening is they aren't really wanting advice from you or even wanting help. They're just wanting this pseudo relationship,
something
codependency.
Yeah.
And, okay, you keep asking me for help, but you're making the same mistakes. And what is actually helpful is for me to actually distance myself at this moment. But if we're honest, I don't want to distance myself because you keep coming to me for help makes me feel.
And if they're a person of means, another hint is they'll start buying you gifts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's the next level. We don't have time for that.
Yeah. No, this is a note to self.
Note to self. Red flag. You touch on it. You already kind of touched on it, but maybe walk us through the collaboration. We go from connection to collaboration. And, how does that look? You even touch on, we can jump to compliance and ownership and kind of those competing tensions.
Yeah, that really is how you're in collaborating. It's not whether there is a fine line between two people that are debating, brainstorming, problem solving, these kinds of things. But if you can kind of tell when one's trying to get their own way versus they're both really working hard towards a good solution. And when you find that, you're sensing that, there's ownership in here. They really want to do the right thing. So for example, a lot of times what are the issues usually about? Well, they're always about resources, or a strategy of using those resources. So money or people, how, when, why, those kinds of things. Collaboration only really happens when there's enough level of ownership by the persons involved in the relationship to make it authentic towards the mission.
Yeah, because I would imagine compliance, there's really no connection or collaboration.
It's a transaction.
Yeah. In this vein of choosing people, we've kind of set up this idea already, but practically, what is that comprised of? How do you choose your people? Who are your people? What do they look like?
Well, there's some practical things. Sometimes you are going to want to choose people that you think will help you accomplish the mission, as long as you don't use the people. But they also want to accomplish the mission, and they're a good fit for that. But sometimes when we're talking about choosing people, it's as simple as your posture in the world. It's like your neighbor may not want to be known, and so there's not a whole lot you can do about that. But you have a neighbor, and it seems kind of practical to me that you should choose to at least know your neighbors, because there'll come a day and time that knowing their name and a little bit about them, will be helpful. But there's also that person at work that's a pain in your butt. It's a draining relationship. Sometimes, again, if you're a person of faith and that person's not going away and you can't make them go away, maybe there's a message about, hey, why don't you just decide to get on their team, help them, encourage them, confront them. But that's choosing people too. Is instead of walking away from somebody that irritates you, you say, okay, this is going to take a little more work. I'm going to have to get intentional, meaning I'm going to have to choose to try to help this person be successful.
Is there categories within your people that we need to be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, I just threw out in the book, I just threw out some examples. Everyone can kind of create their own. There's your inner circle. I find it fascinating that even Jesus had an inner circle. And then, various ripples, from that. Your inner circle is usually smaller than what you might call your team. You might have what you call a team that extends beyond that. Obviously, your family is a circle. And then you have affinities, but all of these kind of overlap with one another and kind of creates your community together. But I don't sit there and say, okay, does Winston fall in my inner circle or on my team or on my affinity?
You don't have a spreadsheet?
I don't have a spreadsheet for that, but I do tend to take inventory of my life and my relationships and who maybe I am over committing to, and I need to make an intentional retreat. Others that I've done the opposite, where now maybe I need to make more of an advance. I'm only one human being. How am I supposed to steward these relationships?
I think you also get into this idea of kind of how we see people, whether they be fixed or people that are capable of more, maybe a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset towards people. Yeah. How does that sneak up on us, or how does that bleed into choosing our people?
Oh, I think you and I have talked about this before. There's three things that make our relationship complicated. One is I'm complicated. Two is you're complicated. And we have a relationship, and the relationship is complicated. Not to mention all the other outside voices that are trying to get inside what we're trying to do, that are trying to get in there. So the discernment is just so key. There's shysters everywhere, and there's good folks. What I've noticed about good folks is you kind of have to mine for those. That's just what I've noticed. I'm not saying you have to dig, but you got to kind of mine for them a little bit, because that usually says, they're pretty full, and people of high quality, they're pretty full. So they're not just always available. It's not like they're out playing golf every day. I always remember the analogy that, you should have an arm reaching up for those that are further along than you, asking for a hand, but you should also be reaching down, trying to help other people. It's just some of it's common sense, but you still have to be thoughtful about it.
Yeah. Thinking about this, there's this phrase that's been coming to mind, not just about people. I think it's a principle potentially in a lot of people's lives, but we are conditioned to commit out of fear.
And out of loss. Yeah.
And so there's this scarcity
FOMO
mindset where we're committing to relationships, maybe because we think, okay, this is the best that I can do. I'm a friend with this person. Are they really adding value? Is this the healthiest relationship? Probably not. But if I lose this person, I'm not sure I can find or choose a better quality relationship. And so we end up committing.
And that's the scarcity
fear.
thing you're talking about. Right. Yeah.
And it just skews our perspective, and whether we've just never had an actual healthy relationship. And so it just creates this cycle, this perpetual, okay, I'm going to, my standards for the relationship, whatever that is, maybe it's a partnership, business partnership, maybe it's, team building, but your standards are less than because you think that's all you can ever experience.
Yeah. So volume over quality can get in there. I mean, I've heard a lot of influencers, social influencers, give all kinds of tips about how you can grow your relationships. And one of them I thought was actually pretty good, and I practiced it for a while. Then I realized I'm way beyond my capacity, and it was a really good tip. I'll leave his name out of it, but he said, how like when you open up your phone and you open up the text, go ahead and scroll, unless you delete them all the time. Go ahead and scroll to the end. See how far back that takes you. 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. I think they drop off at a certain amount of years. And that last one, and it's George, Smith. And you go, gosh, I vaguely just text George Smith. Hey, George, was thinking about you today. Well, that's a lie, right? And then George goes, oh, pretty good, Jim. How are you doing? And, he's told you just to do that. But then I started thinking after I practiced that for like 6 months, because it was amazing how, to what end, for what purpose?
Where is this going?
It's not like I'm going to go fishing with the guy next Saturday. It's not like we're going to start a business together. I mean, what? So some things, they're just not very thoughtful.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure should you remember certain people's names? Yeah. Should you remember everyone you meet's name? No. And why can't you just say, I know we've met, but doggone it, I forgot. I forgot your name. Would you tell me again? I mean, that's just more refreshing to me than someone just,
hey, brother.
Hey, brother.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a hey, brother.
I think we all are.
That's
right?
my go-to.
Because in this world today, we get around. We get around, and there's some kind of a weird unwritten thing where we should all remember each other, even though that was a 5-minute conversation standing up in a lobby somewhere, and 3 years have gone by, and somehow we're supposed to send them a birthday card,
Pastor Winston, you baptized me. Hey, brother. Oh, my bad. That's different.
We don't want to get into that.
That's different. We can land the plane here. You touch on this idea of well, I'll pose it this way: what should somebody do when collaboration breaks down and trust can't be rebuilt?
Well, that happens to. If that has not happened to you, then you must not be doing anything, because it just happens. It happens to all of us. So some of those old cliches I think are still good. Don't burn bridges, but agree that this is a good time to, move in different directions. If you're a Christian person and you don't think that should happen, well, then just open your Bible, because it happened to some of the heroes of the faith where they went in 2 different directions. I'm not saying we should make light of it, but it's really important. I tell you what, let me answer your closing with this. One of the things that Zig Ziglar said is, he said, you'd be surprised once you get the hang of this wall of gratitude is the names that end up on it. And he was right. One of the hardest men that I've ever worked for in my life ended up on my wall of gratitude, not because of the warm and fuzzies, but because of something, in some cases, much greater. So every fork in the road in a relationship is not necessarily something that's broken. And you can look at it that way, I suppose, or you can say, what good came of that? And how can I remember that in positive ways? And how can I remember that in other ways that are useful and helpful?
It's great. Maybe you're listening today, watching, as we close, maybe something you can take away is this wall of gratitude. Taking a few moments out of your day, maybe in the morning before you go to bed, and start looking at, man, who would be on my wall? Who would be on my list? Who are we currently choosing as our people? Taking some time to be thoughtful about the relationships in our life, because they matter. And as leaders, man, we want to be able to gauge the health of our leadership by the health of our relationships. And so this is all coming out of Reimagining Leadership, potentially out now, if not out soon. So be looking out for that book by Jim Piper. But until next time, we'll see you here on Today Count Show. Thanks for spending part of your day with us on the Today Count Show. If today's conversation encouraged you, challenged you, or helped you grow, share it with someone in your circle, because we're better when we grow together. And be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected with us on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And remember, real change doesn't happen someday. It happens today. Until next time, keep showing up, keep building, keep making today count.